At 3:52 a.m., the ocean doesn't care who you are. It doesn't care if you're 16 years old. It doesn't care if you're loved. And it doesn't care if someone is screaming your name from the other side of a locked cabin door. That night, somewhere between Florida and the Caribbean, a luxury cruise ship cut silently through the Atlantic. Music still echoed faintly from late-night lounges. Drinks were still being poured. Passengers were sleeping, dreaming, or pretending not to think about the darkness beneath them. And then a call came into ship security. A teenage girl was missing. Her name was Lena Harper, 16 years old, last seen on Deck 6. Her mother, Rachel Harper, woke up minutes earlier with the unmistakable feeling that something was wrong, the kind of instinct only parents understand. The cabin felt too quiet, too empty. Lena's bed hadn't been slept in. Rachel searched the bathroom, the balcony, the hallway. Nothing. When she stepped into the corridor, she found her husband, Thomas Reed, already dressed, already awake, already saying the words that would later replay in her mind like a broken recording. I think she went out for some air. By sunrise, ship staff found Lena's phone near the railing. The screen was cracked. No messages. No goodbye. By noon, the search was called off. And just like that, the ocean kept its secret. 3 days later, Rachel Harper flew back to Savannah, Georgia, alone. There was no body to bring home, no remains to bury, only documents, forms, signatures, a death certificate for a child who had simply vanished into water. At the cemetery, they lowered an empty casket into the ground. Rachel didn't cry. She screamed. She collapsed onto the dirt, clawing at the ground, shouting that her daughter wasn't in there, because she wasn't. Friends tried to pull her back. Family tried to calm her down. Nothing worked, because grief without a body is a special kind of torture. It never ends. Thomas Reed stayed. At least, that's what it looked like. He stood beside Rachel at the funeral, held her arm when her legs gave out, answered questions when she couldn't speak, told everyone the same thing. Lena had been struggling. We didn't see the signs. Rachel didn't believe it. Not really. But she was too broken to argue. She had raised Lena alone for most of her life. Lena's biological father had died in a workplace accident when Lena was 5. Rachel worked double shifts as a respiratory therapist. Night shifts, holidays, whatever it took. Then Thomas came into their lives. Charming, calm, attentive. The kind of man who made you feel safe simply by listening. They married when Lena was 14, and Thomas legally adopted her 6 months later. Rachel believed she had finally given her daughter a complete family. She had no idea she had just handed her child to a predator. After Lena's disappearance, memories began rearranging themselves. Rachel remembered how Lena had changed in the months before the cruise, how she stopped making eye contact, how she withdrew from friends, how she suddenly hated being alone with her mother, but never seemed uncomfortable around Thomas. Her school counselor later recalled the shift. She became guarded, closed off, like she was carrying something heavy. Lena's best friend noticed it too. She stopped talking about her stepfather entirely. And when Rachel scrolled through Lena's social media months later, something chilled her to the bone. Photos with Thomas vanished after December. Erased. Rachel had assumed it was teenage moodiness. She had been wrong. The cruise had been Thomas's idea. A reset, a chance to reconnect. 10 days at sea, no distractions, just family. Rachel had been desperate enough to believe it could fix what she didn't understand. Passengers later described the Harper Reed family as normal, but the cabin steward noticed something else. Lena spent hours alone on the balcony, staring at the water. Morning, afternoon, night, always alone. Rachel kept a journal during the trip. Day 2, Lena wouldn't eat with us. Thomas says I'm smothering her. Day 4, something feels wrong. I don't know how to explain it. On one poor day, Rachel went ashore alone after Lena insisted she stay on board with Thomas. When Rachel returned, Thomas couldn't keep his story straight about where Lena had been. Teen club, arcade, cabin. Each version slightly different. Each one wrong. The final night of the cruise, they sat at a table for 3. The waiter would later say he'd never forget the girl's face. She looked scared. She kept checking exits, kept gripping her phone. And when Rachel reached for her hand, Lena pulled away, like she'd been burned. That was the last time Rachel saw her daughter, or so she believed. When the ship docked in Port Canaveral, authorities took over. Statements were recorded. Footage was reviewed. But Deck 6 had blind spots. No witnesses. No struggle. No proof of anything except absence. Thomas told investigators Lena had been depressed. Rachel told them her daughter would never jump. Within 48 hours, the case was classified. Presumed suicide. Accidental death. No foul play suspected. Case closed. Rachel returned home with a suitcase full of grief and no answers. Thomas returned with her, and for a while, he played the role of the grieving husband perfectly. 6 weeks later, Thomas packed his bags. He told Rachel he couldn't breathe in the house anymore, that her grief was suffocating him, that he needed to move forward. Rachel begged. She got on her knees. "You're all I have left of her." Thomas didn't look back. The divorce papers arrived days later. He gave up everything. House, assets, memories. He just wanted out. And then he vanished. No forwarding address. No phone number. No explanation. Just gone. Rachel didn't live. She survived. Medication bottles lined her nightstand. Therapy appointments filled her calendar. Support groups replaced friendships. She tried to return to work. Failed. She tried dating. Failed. Twice she tried to end her life. Not because she wanted to die, but because she wanted the pain to stop. And slowly, painfully, she learned how to exist inside the wreckage. Until 6 years later, in a place she never expected, she looked up at a fruit stand in San Juan, Puerto Rico, and saw her daughter, alive. Rachel Harper wasn't supposed to be in Puerto Rico. The trip wasn't a celebration. It wasn't a vacation. It was a compromise. 6 years after burying an empty coffin, Rachel's sister Monica and a close friend from her grief group convinced her to take a short getaway. Sunday noise. Somewhere that didn't smell like memory. Rachel agreed on one condition. No pressure. No expectations. No pretending to be okay. On the third afternoon, they wandered through an open-air market in Old San Juan. Color everywhere. Music drifting through the streets. Vendors shouting prices in Spanish and English. Rachel wasn't really looking at anything. She was just walking. And then something stopped her cold. Across the market, near a fruit stand, stood a young woman with 2 small children. A boy holding her hand. A toddler in a stroller. Rachel didn't know why she was staring. She just knew she couldn't look away. The woman laughed at something the boy said. That laugh hit Rachel like a punch. Her heart began to race. She moved closer without realizing it. 10 feet, 5 feet. Then the woman turned, and 6 years collapsed into a single second. The face was older, sharper, a woman instead of girl. But the eyes were unmistakable. Rachel's knees nearly gave out. The birthmark beneath the left ear, the way she shifted her weight when she stood. The hands, long fingers, paint-stained nails. This wasn't grief. This wasn't imagination. This was Lena, alive. Rachel's body locked up. Her brain scrambled for explanations. A double, a coincidence, a cruel hallucination. Then a man approached from behind the fruit stand. He wrapped an arm around the woman's waist, leaned down, kissed the top of her head. Rachel recognized that posture instantly. She knew the way he moved, the way he stood, the way he claimed space. The man turned, and Rachel saw his face. Thomas Reed, alive, unharmed, standing beside her daughter. The world tilted. Sound drained out. The market blurred into nothing but noise and color. Lena saw her then. Their eyes met. Recognition hit Lena's face instantly. Not confusion, not curiosity. Fear. Pure, unmistakable fear. Lena grabbed Thomas's arm hard, whispered something urgent into his ear. Thomas's eyes snapped to Rachel. For a single moment, the mask fell. Calculation, panic, decision. They moved, not running, just fast. Too fast. Lena lifted the boy. Thomas grabbed the stroller, and they disappeared into the crowd. Rachel tried to follow. Her legs wouldn't work. Her lungs wouldn't fill. She collapsed against a vendor table, gasping for air as strangers stared. Monica found Rachel minutes later on the ground, hyperventilating, shaking. What happened? Are you hurt? Rachel couldn't speak at first. Then, finally, I saw her. Monica frowned. Saw who? Rachel's voice cracked. Lena. Silence. They got her back to the hotel. Water. Breathing exercises. Calming words. Everyone assumed the same thing. 6 years of grief had finally broken her. That night, Rachel sat upright in bed. Her eyes were clear, focused. "I'm not crazy," she said. Monica hesitated. "Nobody said you were. I saw her birthmark. I saw her walk. I saw Thomas." That changed the room. Because Thomas wasn't supposed to exist. Rachel told them everything. The kids. The kiss. The way they fled. Monica tried reason. "People look alike." Rachel shook her head. "That was my daughter. And Thomas." Rachel didn't hesitate. He was with her, as her husband. The next morning, Rachel returned to the market. Monica came with her. Not because she believed, but because she was scared to let Rachel go alone. Rachel showed vendors an old photo of Lena. Most shook their heads, until the fruit vendor paused. "That looks like Maria," she said. Rachel's blood turned cold. "She comes here sometimes. Nice girl. 2 kids." Rachel swallowed. "Do you know where she lives?" The vendor shrugged. "In the hills. I think. Tuesdays. Saturdays. Around 4. Rachel stepped back. Monica didn't speak, because if the vendor recognized the face, then maybe Rachel wasn't imagining anything. Rachel waited, day after day, for a clock came and went. Nothing. Doubt crept in. Maybe she was wrong. Maybe grief had finally twisted her mind. On their last afternoon before flying home, Rachel stood in the same spot again, just to say goodbye to the ghost. And then she saw them. Lena walked through the market holding the boy's hand. Thomas pushed the stroller. Monica followed Rachel's gaze. And this time, she froze. Oh my God! Because the resemblance wasn't vague. It was exact. They watched as the family loaded groceries into a battered pickup truck. Rachel memorized the license plate. Flagged down a taxi. Follow that truck. The driver laughed. Until Rachel shoved cash into his hand. The truck drove out of the city into the hills. Stopped at a yellow house at the end of a dirt road. A home. A life. Rachel stared at it until the lights came on. She didn't knock. Not yet. Back at the hotel, Monica insisted they call the police. Rachel refused. They won't believe me. They closed her case in 2 days. I need proof. The next morning, Monica woke up to an empty bed and a note. I need to do this alone. Rachel was already on her way to the yellow house. The taxi stopped 2 houses away. Rachel Harper stayed in the back seat, watching the yellow house. Thomas Reed's truck was gone. Good. She paid the driver in cash. You didn't see me, she said. The driver didn't argue. Rachel stepped out onto the dirt road alone. 6 years of grief led her up that short driveway. She knocked 3 times. Steady. Controlled. Footsteps inside. The door opened. Lena stood there holding a coffee mug. Hair pulled into a messy bun. Wearing an oversized t-shirt. Barefoot. Alive. The mug slipped from her hand and shattered on the floor. Brown liquid spread across the tile. For a moment, neither of them spoke. 6 years collapsed into silence. Then Lena whispered the word Rachel had dreamed about hearing for years. Mom. Rachel's voice was sharp. Don't. 2 small children peeked from behind Lena's legs. The boy stared openly. The toddler clung to her sister's shirt. Rachel stepped inside. Lena backed away like a trapped animal. Go to your room, Lena said, her voice shaking. The boy didn't move. Marcus, she said, firmer now. Take your sister. Go. Close the door. They obeyed. A door shut down the hallway. Rachel heard the click. Now it was just the 2 of them, mother and daughter. Rachel looked around the house. Toys on the floor. Family photos on the wall. A life built on her absence. You let me bury an empty coffin, Rachel said quietly. Lena broke. I didn't know how to stop it. You let me scream at a grave with no body. I was scared. You let me try to kill myself. Lena slid down the wall, sobbing. You told me you'd be okay. Rachel laughed once, hollow. Was I? Rachel's voice hardened. Where's Thomas? Lena flinched. At work. Call him. Please, Mom. Call him. Lena dialed with shaking hands. Her voice barely held together. Can you come home? Now. They waited. While they waited, Rachel asked the question she had carried for 6 years. How old were you? 15. When did it start? He listened to me, made me feel special. Rachel closed her eyes. You were a child. I know that now. He groomed you. Lena nodded. Tears soaked her shirt. I thought it was love. The sound of tires on gravel. An engine shutting off. Lena went pale. Rachel stood. The front door opened. Thomas Reed walked in, dust on his boots. Mid-sentence. Then he saw Rachel, and every ounce of charm drained from his face. Rachel, he said slowly. Don't say my name. Thomas glanced at Lena. What did you tell her? She didn't have to, Rachel said. I saw you. In the market. With my daughter. Thomas raised his hands. Let's calm down. 6 years, Rachel said. 6 years you let me believe she was dead. Thomas's tone shifted. She wanted this. Stop, Lena cried. She chose me, Thomas said. I didn't force anything. Rachel stepped closer. She was 15. She was mature. She was a child. Rachel reached in her bag. Thomas saw it. His confidence shattered. Put that down. Lena screamed. Mom, please. Rachel's hand was steady. You destroyed my life. Thomas backed toward the door. We can explain. You married me to get to her. That's not. You groomed my child. Thomas snapped. She wanted it. The words hung in the air. Thomas lunged for the door. The gun fired. The sound was deafening. Thomas fell. Blood spread across the floor. Lena screamed. The children screamed from the bedroom. Rachel stood frozen. Gun still raised. Thomas gasped once. Twice. Then stopped. Rachel dropped the gun. Collapsed to her knees. Marcus ran out of the room. Saw the body. Stopped dead. Lena grabbed both children. Don't look. Don't look. Rachel watched. Her grandchildren. Children she never knew existed. Terrified of her. Rachel picked up the gun again. Lena froze. Marcus whispered, Please don't hurt my mommy. Rachel looked at him. At the girl. At the bloodline she didn't know she had. The gun slipped from her hand. I can't. She stood. You're dead to me, she said to Lena. The daughter I knew died at sea. Sirens wailed in the distance. Rachel sat on the couch and waited. The siren stopped outside the yellow house. Doors slammed. Boots hit gravel. Voices shouted commands. Police. Hands where we can see them. Rachel Harper stood slowly. I shot him, she said calmly. He's dead. Officers moved fast. Guns drawn. Cuffs snapped shut around her wrists. They read her rights as they pulled her away from the living room. Rachel didn't resist. She didn't cry. She looked once, only once, at Lena holding the children on the floor. That was the last image she would carry with her. At the San Juan Police Department, Rachel sat in a cold room under fluorescent lights. Blood still on her shoes. 2 detectives listened as she spoke. She told them everything. The cruise, the phone by the railing, the empty coffin, the husband who vanished, the marketplace, the house. At first, the detectives were skeptical. Then they ran the names, and everything unraveled. Thomas Reed, declared grieving widower, but also linked to unexplained offshore transfers, and a closed maritime incident involving a missing minor. Then fingerprints from the yellow house came back. They didn't match any deceased person. They matched Lena Harper, a girl officially dead for 6 years. The case reopened overnight. By morning, investigators found a former cruise ship maintenance worker now living in Fort Lauderdale. He confessed within hours. Money, blind spots, a girl hidden in crew quarters, an unscheduled port stop, a fake death executed perfectly. Rachel hadn't imagined anything. She had uncovered it. Rachel was charged with voluntary manslaughter, not murder. The state acknowledged extreme emotional disturbance. Lena was arrested separately. Fraud, identity falsification, conspiracy. Prosecutors debated her status. Victim or accomplice. She was both. The children were placed in protective custody. Rachel's sister Monica filed for emergency guardianship and won. The trial divided the country. Some called Rachel a hero. Others called her a killer. Experts testified. Psychologists explained grief-induced psychosis. Grooming specialists explained coercive control. Rachel's suicide attempts were entered into evidence. So were Lena's journals. The jury read every word. After 3 days of deliberation, the verdict came back. Guilty of voluntary manslaughter. Sentence: 7 years. Eligible for parole in 3.5. Rachel nodded. She had expected worse. Lena pleaded guilty. Sentence: 5 years federal prison. The judge said one thing before sentencing. You were a child when this began. You were an adult when you allowed it to continue. Marcus started therapy immediately. Nightmares. Fear. Questions no child should ask. Why did Grandma shoot Daddy? Papa never lied. He hurt people, she said. And I was very angry. Kira barely remembered, but she pressed her hand to the glass every visit. Rachel pressed hers back. Rachel sat in a minimum security facility in Georgia. Calmer now, still broken, but breathing. She received letters from Lena every week. Apologies, explanations, begging. Rachel didn't answer for a long time. Then one day, she wrote back a single sentence. The kids are okay. That was all. A documentary crew asked Rachel the question everyone wanted answered. Do you regret killing him? She thought carefully. I regret that it came to that. Pause. But I don't regret that he's gone. Another question. Would you do it again? Long silence. I don't know. Lena will be released first. Rachel will follow years later. Marcus and Kira will grow up with questions. About justice. About forgiveness. About whether love can survive betrayal. There is no clean ending here. Only consequences. Here's the truth about this story. There is no right answer. A man groomed a child. A daughter helped destroy her mother. A mother pulled the trigger. Was it justice? Or was it murder? If you buried your child, if you learned it was all a lie, if you stood face to face with the man who stole 6 years of your life, what would you have done?